he tells us, if I can get the pen open, he tells us to go, not come. He tells us to go, not come. He says, make disciples of what? Of all nations. And so when I see make disciples of all nations, I think one of the biggest things that we struggle with, and even myself, is we like to pick and choose who we want to go out and share the gospel with. We like to go and share the gospel with somebody. For me, I normally have a hard time now. I mean, you guys can take this any way you want, but I have a hard time approaching somebody who's not of the same skin color as me. And I feel, black guy, tattoos, hat to the back. How do I approach this person? I'm not going to approach that person. I'm going to go to somebody who looks a little bit more like me, who might actually give me an opportunity to sit down and talk with them. We like to pick and choose who we want to talk to, but it says all nations. And so we can't pick and choose. We don't have the right to pick and choose who we want to share the gospel with. We have to go out, and he says all nations. And so, all, not some. All nations. And he says to do what? He says make disciples. A lot of times, as a cop-out, we would rather just invite somebody to church and not invite them to Jesus. We think inviting them to church, and we get them to church, and then we just kind of let it, okay, cool, they in church, hopefully they come back next week, hopefully the 20-plus group or remnant, hopefully they come and crowd this person so I don't have to really invest my time in this person, and hopefully they just kind of get buried in and get plugged in somehow. But we bring people to church, and we think that it's the church that saves, but in reality, the Bible doesn't teach that. The Bible teaches that it's Jesus who saves, right? And so, he tells us to make disciples, if I can spell that right, not church members. Hopefully you guys can read that. But he says make disciples, not church members. And with that being said, one of the big things that I struggled with when I was living in Las Vegas and when I came to know Christ, so one of my biggest regrets is I was too comfortable. I wasn't going out. I wasn't living out the Great Commission. I was a little too comfortable. But I think a lot that has to do with it is because I didn't know my identity. I didn't know who I was in Christ. And if I ask you guys that, don't blurt it out, but do you know who you are in Christ? Do you know your identity? And I heard it put this way, and it was actually pretty clever, that a Christian not having his identity is almost like a child being adopted into a family and not having a name. It's like bringing somebody in. Because when we come to know Christ, we're adopted into the family, right? And when you bring somebody into a family, a kid, you adopt a kid, and you want to give them a name. But if you tell them, I can't really think of a name for you. I'm gonna get back to you when I find out a name. That kid is not going to even know who they are. You ask them who they are, they ain't going to be able to give you a name because they don't have an identity.